Hi, this is Irina Lyons, and I'm here recording a screencast for you guys so you can figure out how and if Chicago is experiencing climate change. All right, so once you download the spreadsheet from Edmodo, you want to open it up, and across the bottom we have 5 different tabs. Each tab is like a new sheet of paper. So we want to start in sheet number 1. That's where we're going to be making the graphs first. Okay, so my sheet number 1 is labeled amount of solar radiation or insolation. And in this sheet, I have 2 sets of numbers. These are my ordered pairs that I'm going to graph. So in this sheet, the step of the procedure that I'm on is going to be selecting cells from A3 to B170 and then making a chart out of them. So I'm going to click on cell A3, hold my mouse button, and then drag it all the way down to the bottom of my spreadsheet. Yep, and if I went too far, I can always back it up. All right, so now I'm going to go back to the top so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm saying in my procedure to go to Insert tab. There it is. And then click Charts and then select 2D line. Charts, line. Pretty much any one of these will work, but I like the first one. Ta-da! So now in about less than a minute, we've made a new chart that I can interpret. And I can actually resize the chart to view it a little bit better, or even move the chart location and make it a new sheet so I can interpret it. So here's my new chart. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to be on to the second graph that we're making, monthly insolations. By the way, I forgot to mention that if you feel like the screencast is going too fast at any point in time, feel free to press pause, catch up, and then return to the playing it. All right, so second sheet, monthly installations. So in this one, we are going to be making 2 lines. I'm going to start off by pressing Insert Charts, Line 2D. So with this one, I don't want any data selected, so I'm just going to start with a blank chart, Line 2D. So here's my blank chart, and it's blocking my view, so I'm going to move it over to the side so I can see what's going on. All right, next I'm going to add data. So under Chart Tools, I find a button that says Select Data. I press it, a new window pops up, and now I'm going to be adding data. So initially I'm going to select the name that I'm going to call this line. So I'm going to make one line that's for the 80s amounts of insolation. And I press enter there. And then I'm going to select the values that I'm going to graph. So I only want to select the average values. All right, and if I look carefully, there's my beautiful blue line that I just graphed in about 10 seconds. So that's my first line, but that has not given me the second set of data. So I'm going to add another series or add another line. And this line I'm going to name average monthly amount of insolation. And my values are these. So we have a red line appearing on our screen. I press OK. So the only problem is that typically when I make this graph, across the x-axis, I'm going to have labels that make sense. And for labels to make sense, they have to be months of the year. So I'm going to edit the horizontal axis labels. So instead of them saying 1, 2, 3, I'm going to want them to say January through December. There they are. Okay, so my graph is done. I can resize it again so I can interpret it a little bit easier. All right, so we're about halfway done. Sheet number 3 on the bottom, historic temperatures. So we're going to see how the temperatures vary in Chicago between the year 1995 through 2008. And then the satellite stopped functioning in 2008. So that's where I stopped. So I'm going to start with my cell A3, and I'm going to highlight down to B104. I'm going to select a new sheet. So this is very, very similar to what I did in the first chart. There it is. Done. Okay. So again, I can expand this, making it a little bit easier to interpret how often they vary, but that should be enough. All right, on to the fourth. Now we're going to compare the temperature in Chicago, how it changed from 1994 and 1997 period to the recent 2005-2008 period. Okay, so let's take a look. So we're going to be starting with no data selected. I go to Insert, Line, pick the first graph. It's blank, move it over so it's not blocking my view. Now I'm going to add data. I'm going to add the first line. The name of that first line will be average monthly temperatures, 1994 to 1997. And then I'm going to add the values by highlighting. Okay, so we have our first line. Excellent. We're going to draw our second line. I'm going to name it. And I'm going to give it the numbers that I'm going to graph. So there's my second line. And again, the x-axis doesn't quite make sense. It's supposed to be months, so I'm going to edit the horizontal. And you can pick either this group or the second group of month names. Press OK. All right, so now my graph is complete. We're good. I can interpret it and figure it out. Did the climate in Chicago change? Did it get colder, warmer, or what happened? All right, our last sheet. How did the amount of precipitation? So this is the one that you're going to use to figure out whether it's getting drier or wetter in Chicago. So this time we're making clustered columns. So I'm going to start with nothing highlighted. I'm going to press Insert, Columns, and I'm going to choose the one that says cluster. It's a little hard to figure out, but if you mouse over them, it's going to tell you which ones are supposed to be the clustered ones. That one will work. I'll move my sheet over so I can have my instructions pulled up. All right, I'm going to select data. And this is very much the same way that we were just graphing lines. So I'm going to add my first. I'm going to name it and select the precipitation values. Good. I'm going to compare it to the next decade. Oh, I went back a little too far. Series values, I forgot to pick those, so I'm going to do those now. All right, so the red bars appear, and the only other fix is to put the labels on the x-axis. There you are. So I can see in my chart that it's looking good. So now I can compare 1970s to 2000s and figure out what changes took place. All right, I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. And you can always watch this again or send me questions, but the assignment is due Friday, May 30th by midnight, either in person or digitally. Thank you very much. Bye.